You wouldn't expect someone who's been hunched over, working at a computer for 10 hours a day for the last years to be super flexible, right? It's the simple concept of if you don't use it, you lose it. But what does using it actually mean? How do we ensure that we keep our joint range of motion and that we keep our body healthy? Let's dive in. Many people would say that in order to stay healthy throughout our lives, we need to be doing some resistance training or strength training. We need to keep up with our flexibility by doing some stretching, and we need to have some cardiovascular activity. Of course, this is all true, but I think that there's something in between strengthening and stretching exercises that is really beneficial for our long-term health. And that's this idea of pumping blood to our joints frequently. I like to think of this as using multiple joint ranges of motion at a low intensity, just enough to drive blood flow, but not so much that you get super fatigued and have to recover. I want you to keep these intentions in mind. Stay within your comfort zone. Stay connected to your breath. If you get out of breath, you're working too hard. And don't think of this as working out. Think of it as nourishing your body. Quite the opposite as the approach that we'll often take into the gym for a harder workout. So I compiled a list of about 12 of these movements that you can try out for yourself, see what feels good. Let's get into it. Overhead reach. Hands up, touch the sky. Keep your spine straight and stay away from overarching the lower back. As you raise up, feel the shoulders in the back stretch out. Toe touch. Simply move the hands down towards your feet. Try not to push yourself too much. Go to your limit and try to make it smooth and effortless. Squat. We're looking to bend the knees and the ankles as much as feels comfortable for you. Use assistance as much as needed, but just accumulate some time with your lower body joints compressed. Kneeling. There's various different kneels for you to explore, but once again, this is another way to expose the lower body joints to different positions and compression. Now, what's really cool is you can see how well these 4 movements fit into a Tai Chi style inspired movement flow. Doing a few rounds of this flow daily is a really efficient way to nourish your joints and not have to work too hard. So before we move on to the next movements, I want to share, for me personally, when I was younger and I developed a lot of stiffness from playing sports, I thought my ticket to feeling more free and just good in my body was to develop my flexibility in advanced ways. But what I found is just because I could do the splits or have a nice back bridge didn't necessarily mean that I was going to feel really good in my body. Now, when I started to build quick routines with the idea of lubricating my joints and connecting to my breath, that's when I started to feel a lot more comfortable in my body. And it was a lot less about trying to increase the range of motion that I had in my joints, and it was more about just making myself feel comfortable and safe. And then in turn, it became easier to increase joint range of motion when I wanted to. And back to the movements, we have mobilizing the wrists. So just some light stimulus for the wrists, placing the hands on the ground, doing the finger push-ups, doing wrist extension, and then also doing wrist flexion as well. Knee quarter bend explorations. So this is just simply doing quarter squats. Some people would say, oh, it's not a full range of motion squat. It's okay. This is a great way to nourish the knees, and you can use different positions with the feet together. You can move the feet wide into more of a horse stance. You can start to go side to side, loading one knee at a time. And you can also, keeping the feet together, start to circle the knees. This is really good stimulus for the ankles and the knees in more of a rotational manner. Hang. Hang is one of the easiest ways to stretch those shoulders and really just decompress the spine. If you can hang daily, it's really, really good for your overall health. 90-90 position. Hip rotations. This is a really easy, nourishing way to get rotation into those big hip joints. Start by keeping the hands on the ground and just gently use those muscles of your hips to move the legs side to side. Now, another variation would be to lift the hips from this 90-90 position. And this is another one that can be really, really good for your hip rotation. Lunging variations, spending some time with one leg in front of you, one leg behind you. This is really, really nice for your hip extension, as well as training the stability and strength of your front leg. You can do this in various different positions, with the knee on the ground, a higher lunge, or a deeper split squat position. Arm rotations. So there's various different ways that we can use our arms to open up the shoulders and the spine. We can do this in more of a slacked way, where we're swinging the arms, or we can use more muscle tension to drive the rotation and opening of the spine. Calf raise. This one is very simple, but driving some good blood flow to our calves can be very important, especially if we're not walking so much during the day. I think it's important to work the calves in multiple positions, so you can do this with the knees straight, you can do it with the knees bent, and you can also do it in a deep squat position. Now, the last movement may be the most important, and that's just focusing on an intentional breath. Now, I find for myself that whenever I'm feeling a bit stiffer or tighter, I'm usually not getting full breaths into my diaphragm. Some ways that you can work on this is simply to place your hand over your belly and try to fill up as much as your belly and then into the rib cage as possible. Another way to do this is to lie on your back, place a book on top of your belly button, and make sure that that book rises every time you take an inhalation. It's actually quite amazing how much your body will relax and give you more flexibility if you make yourself feel safe through focusing on your breath. The real benefits of daily low intensity movement go beyond the physical. These quick routines can add a daily check-in point for yourself, a meditation of sorts that can help you slow down and enhance your well-being. Now, the best way to use these movements is to build a short routine for yourself. Start small, build a routine that only takes a few minutes to do, so there's a low barrier and you'll stick to it daily. As you build up the habit, then you can add more and more to your routine and maybe build something that's 10 to 15 minutes. You can also use our free routine that we built for just these purposes called the Daily Practice, and that link will be in the description. Now, another way that you can use some of these movements is as a warm-up or cool down for another workout that you're doing. Now, the most important part with these movements is being consistent. Try to do them every day or every other day, and be intentional. Don't rush through the motions. Really focus on the quality of each movement that you're doing. Use effort to make it effortless, and enjoy the improvements in your body. So I'd love to hear from you guys. If you could add a low intensity movement for you to check in with on a daily basis to this list, what would it be? Comment below. If you enjoyed this video, click that like button. Follow us on Instagram. We're at The Strength Side. We release videos here every single Friday. So hit that subscribe button, follow along. And if you haven't already, get started on these movements. I'll see you in the next one, as always.